Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Gail with the SOB show. And I want to read a quote to you from my guest today before I introduce her. And she said, "When you love who you are, you become healthy, strong, and unstoppable. This is true transformation, body and mind. This is a gift I want to share." So I know that you are going to be looking forward to hearing from my guest today, who is Jane Wenning. And Jane is a certified medical technologist with a degree in clinical laboratory science. She's an athletic trainer and health mentor who has been helping women improve their mental and physical health for over 20 years. But during high school and college, she was overweight, struggled with eating disorders, had low self-esteem, and brain fog. However, obtaining a degree in clinical laboratory science and working with athletes, she merged these two worlds together to create a structured wellness plan focused on 4 pillars: recovery, emotional energy, nutrition, and movement. Outside of her degree, she has spent hundreds of hours learning about nutrition, longevity, brain health, sleep, interval training, fasting, epigenetics, and estrogenics. She now equips women and some men with the tools to transform into healthier and stronger versions of themselves to live life with vitality. Well, Jane, welcome to our show, and it's an inspiration to know that somebody went from being overweight and struggling with eating disorders to now being a health guru. So welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gail. I am happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Well, tell us a little more about yourself than what I have already shared with them, because it sounds like you've led a fascinating life.
Okay, thanks. So I've been married for almost 28 years, happily married. My husband and I have 3 kids, ages 21, 25, and 26. And my husband and I live in Minnesota, but we have a seasonal home in Florida, and that's where I'm speaking to you from today.
And in addition, Florida are you, Jane?
I'm in Bonita Springs.
Oh, okay. I know exactly. I stayed at I think it's the Hyatt there that I did some programs.
Oh,
so I think there's
okay.
a Hyatt. Yeah.
All right.
We have a place.
Yes. So, Gail, in addition to being a clinical laboratory scientist and an athletic trainer, I am also an amateur bodybuilder. I'm a competitive CrossFit athlete, and I'm a competitive triathlete. And Gail, my motto is to mature slowly and die quickly.
That's wonderful. You know, I have to laugh when you talk about the triathlons, et cetera. When I was speaking in Hawaii, and I actually went to Kona while they were having the Ironman triathlon, but I got there late at night. And I remember driving into the hotel, and people were on the road, jogging, et cetera. And I thought, man, this has got to be the healthiest island I've ever been on, not knowing that the Ironman triathlon was there. And, of course, the next morning when I woke up and I saw all the signs, I knew what was going on. But it was really an amazing event to witness, because you very seldom get to see the real Ironman triathlon, and I did have the opportunity for that. But what is a amateur bodybuilder?
So an amateur bodybuilder is, okay, so first of all, there's 2 categories of bodybuilders. There are the natural athletes and the enhanced athletes. I'm a natural athlete. And after you've done enough shows, you can participate in a show that will give you, if you place first, it will give you amateur status. And then you can qualify to get your pro card and be a professional natural bodybuilder. I qualified for my pro card, but I declined it because I was competing against a woman who had already received her pro card in the previous class that we were in together, and you can only receive one pro card. So by default, when I took second place in the category that I competed with her in, the next category, they automatically said, well, now you qualify for your pro card. And I thought, no, I want to qualify not based on the fact that my competitor already had her pro card. I want to qualify based on my own merits. And if I didn't take first, I am not going to accept my pro card. So I remain an amateur bodybuilder.
Wow, I've never heard of that, although I do agree with the natural versus the enhanced. That I agree with you on totally. So that's amazing. So what would you say would be one eye-opening event that you had early on in your career? Was it this bodybuilding thing, or was it totally different? I mean, I know because I was a gym rat up until a year and a half ago when everything stopped. And I worked with a lot of people who then went on to compete in bodybuilding competitions. And I mean, it was just amazing to watch what they did to get to the form that they needed to have in order to compete. I mean, it was just amazing. And unfortunately, if you don't keep it up, that form goes away very quickly, as we've seen with many of our movie stars, et cetera.
Yeah. But I would say the tool that I received from competing as a bodybuilder would be more along the lines of focus and being very mindful. What I would say was probably my biggest aha moment was after I'd had my 3 kids and I'm managing our household, operating my business, and I think that I am just crushing it until my husband calls me one day and says that one of his paychecks from a couple months ago hadn't gotten deposited in the checking account yet. Could I follow up on that? Gail, I had lost his paycheck. I didn't know where I had put it. I tore my office apart. And once I finally found that paycheck, I just sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Am I losing my mind? I thought, holy cow, how is my husband going to continue to love somebody that is so absent-minded and careless? And so that's when I realized that I had to take a look at all my lifestyle things that I was doing and see what was serving me and what wasn't, and make those changes. And what I found out, what I realized is that I was burning the candle at both ends, and I was only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, which I was wearing as a badge of honor, until I realized how it was causing me to have brain fog and not be present with my family. And then I did a lot of research on sleep, and I improved my habits quite drastically.
Wow, you've said a lot in that brief summation there, Jane, because really, I think women do take on a lot. Women do take on the responsibility of the home, the responsibility of their job, and something's going to drop in all of that. And I'm sure that your husband would not have forsaken you, even though you thought he would, because he just wouldn't have. On the other hand, focus is so important in everything that you do. And the fact that you discovered it and the fact that you learned about sleep habits were all very, very important. But you mentioned 4 pillars. You mentioned recovery, emotional energy, nutrition, and movement. And I think I know what recovery is, and I think I know what nutrition and movement is. And I would assume emotional energy has got a lot to do with how you live your life and day, but elaborate on each of these for us a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. So recovery is how balanced our bodies are. So recovery involves sleep, but it also involves a lot of other things that create homeostasis or balance in the body. And how do we use recovery to balance our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight, with our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. So that's recovery. And the emotional energy piece is stress awareness, and then taking it from awareness to action so that we can manage our mind. We can have thoughts and feelings and actions. And a lot of what I've studied has come from Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is just absolutely amazing in this field. And then the nutrition piece, of course, is the food, but it's more than food, because a lot of times people think that food is whatever they get at the grocery store. There's a different quality to food, and I like to think of nutrition as real food. So whether you are vegan or paleo or whatever your eating plan involves, making sure that you are eating real food. Did your food have a face at one point in time, or did it grow from the earth? That will give you a good idea about the nutritional value of your food. And in addition to that, hydration is a huge piece of nutrition. And then there's movement. I love walking, and walking is great. But we also need to be aware that our bodies need to be strengthened. So doing body weight type of movements, making sure that our joints are mobile and flexible, and balance, working on our balance. These are all important components that will keep us spunky for a long time.
So each of these, you certainly been enthusiastic about all four pillars. So which pillar do you think is the most important, however? I would think, they're all important, but which is the most important?
Oh, yeah, they're all super important and they all tie together. But the one that I like to focus on is the recovery piece, because it's so underappreciated. People wear, and I used to do this too, I used to wear my lack of sleep as a badge of honor, or how poorly I was treating my body as a badge of honor. And then it was kind of like a wake up moment. It's like, wait a minute, why am I bragging about being so neglectful of my health? That doesn't make any sense at all. So recovery to me is is an important piece, because I'll give you this example. If you're not recovering well, if you're not sleeping well, your body is not getting the energy that it needs to fuel you for the next day. So then you make poor food choices because your body is looking for that energy. And then again, if you don't have that energy from recovery, you have a smaller capacity to deal with all those irritating or stressful elements in your life. And you also lack the motivation maybe to put movement into your day.
That's interesting, because I was going to choose nutrition because, that is what fuels your body and it allows you to do all the other things. But interesting that you chose recovery. And I understand why, and I agree with you. But that I think most people don't even think about recovery or its effects on you or the body. And of course, like you say, there are so many people who say, well, I only need 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. And they do wear it as a badge of courage. And the interesting thing to me is now, as I go through the various health crises that I have, I always went to bed at 11 and I got up at 7. And I got up, I moved. I mean, from the time I got up until the time I went to bed, I moved. Now I go to bed early. Last night, I think I was asleep by 8:30. And then I'm not up out of bed until about 8 o'clock in the morning. My entire habits have changed, but they go along with what I'm going through in my personal life. So does the importance of the pillars change as you age?
You know what? I think the pillars, the importance of them doesn't necessarily change as much as, like you did, you need to reassess and you need to decide what's serving me and what's not. So not that the importance of the pillars changes, but making sure that each one of the pillars is strong in and of themselves.
It's interesting because I was talking about the fact that Very often now, after I eat, I have to lay down to make sure I digest properly. And I have a cat who just loves to be with me, and she comes into the bed with me. And once she's in bed with me and curled up, I mean, next to me in my arms, I'm going to stay there for 30 minutes, and I end up being there 3 hours. And I was on a mastermind call last night, and one of the participants said that when she had broken her leg, she had a broken leg and a broken ankle on the other foot. She said she had never, ever slept as much as she did when she had the broken leg and ankle. And she has not done that since, and she did not do that before. But as your body goes through different changes and you have different things happen to you, you change how you do things as well. So what would you say? You mentioned that, we have to adjust as we see ourselves changing, et cetera. But how does age cause changes to the pillars?
That's really important because especially as females, our hormones change. And sometimes they feel like they change overnight, like a light switch. This can cause, when our hormones change, we can have sleep issues, digestive issues, we can have weight gain issues. That can lead to self-esteem issues and mood issues. If you put on that favorite pair of pants or that favorite skirt and it doesn't fit you just right, what is your attitude and your mood going to be like that day? I know mine goes right in the toilet. So hormones are a big piece of that. But then there's also a new area of medicine that's opening up, and I'm super interested in this. And it's talking about, or it relates to our circadian rhythm and how that affects our health. So that's an interesting piece too, because our circadian rhythms will change as we get older.
Well, it's in hormones that much because I just never really thought about it. And when I was going through menopause, I was speaking and I was on stage all the time. And I would start to sweat. And I mean, just sweat and sweat and sweat. And I was so embarrassed when people would come up and ask me questions later. And I was just pouring sweat. I never went through mood swings and I didn't get depressed and I didn't have any of that. But sweat, I did. And that was just amazing to me. And then, of course, after I was through with all of that, I did not do that anymore. And I never really thought about hormones. And yet, there's a lot of discussion as to what hormones women should take, what are safe for them to take, what they should take, et cetera, et cetera. But, what would you say is a sign of a weak pillar? If I'm paying attention to these 4 pillars, what is a sign of a weak pillar?
So I would have to say that some real quick signs to look for would be if you're not sleeping well, if your sleeping habits have changed, if you're waking up at night, if you're waking up in the morning and you're not feeling refreshed, if you have a hard time falling asleep, changes in any dietary habits. Like maybe you've always been able to eat a food and now it doesn't agree with you. Or maybe you've lost your appetite, or maybe you're craving things all the time. And then changes in bathroom habits, believe it or not, is a huge sign. So here's where I want you to kind of remember when maybe your kids were infants or your grandkids. A happy baby is one that sleeps well, eats well, and poops a lot. So we have to remember that too. And then there are some things that might be a little more subtle, like changes in our skin. If we tend to bruise more easily than we have in the past, or maybe the texture of our skin is changing. Is it getting drier or oilier? Changes in our hair. Do we have aches and pains that, boy, I can't remember where this came from, and now all of a sudden it's here? And again, if there's any energy changes or mood changes, or really that favorite pair of pants that you put on, not those yoga pants because they're always going to fit, but like a pair of pants with a button and a zipper, when they start not fitting well, you have to ask yourself, okay, what's going on here?
Well, it's interesting. As a woman, it's funny. I think as a man, most men, I mean, they get their bellies, et cetera, et cetera. But, I don't think they pay attention as much as women do to whether that zipper zips or whether that button buttons. And isn't it interesting that when that happens to a woman, we put ourselves down for that? A man might just say, "Oh, well, this is what happens with age. I'm getting my pot belly, etc." But a woman says, "Oh, look what's happening to me," and they really self-internalize that a great deal, which is kind of interesting, to see that it happens like that. So, I would think, as you were mentioning all these weak pillars, I was thinking of what can we do to strengthen a pillar? I mean, certainly we can adjust what we're eating if something doesn't agree with us anymore. We perhaps have to change what skincare items we're using, how we're taking care of our skin, et cetera. But do you think that a lot of women, Jane, give up at this point? Because I know that, they look in the mirror and they say, "Wow, this is not the person I used to be." And they just kind of say, "What can I do about it?"
Yeah, oh, I completely agree here. Let me tell you a funny story. So, in my entryway of our home, we have a great big mirror. I know that when my youngest son walks by it, which he does quite often, and he looks in it every time he walks by, he thinks, "Oh, my arms are looking big today. Oh, that chest workout really worked for me today." When I walk by it, I think, "Oh, look at that part that's sagging, or look at that part that's not where it used to be." So we are so critical of ourselves. And that's where we need to get back to admiring ourselves instead of being critical with ourselves in the mirror. We need to get back to that 20 something boy, or we need to maybe adopt that 20 something boy's habits of saying, "Wow, this looks good today." Even if it doesn't look as good as it used to, hey, you are still vertical and it looks good.
Yeah, I was
So,
going to say, at least you can say, for the state that I'm in a good state.
yes, yes. And I would say that yes, a lot of people think, well, I've gotten this far, there's no helping me. Completely false. I think what happens is that people become confused and overwhelmed with all the health information out there, and they don't know where to start. It prevents us from taking any action. And so that's one of the things on my website, which is the number 4-pillarshealth.com. I have a downloadable PDF that will give people 4 simple lifestyle hacks that will bring them better health. They don't take any time, but implementing these simple hacks can help you sleep better, can give you better nutrition, can help you move your body, and can also help you de-stress, because one of the hacks on there is a breathing technique. A breathing technique actually that the Navy SEALs use. So that's one of the places that we can start, and it's making simple little changes, little hacks, and finding success that will propel you into wanting to make more changes. And it's not about making big, huge changes, maybe in your nutrition or your movement. It's about making simple changes and getting that little win and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a break in just a couple of minutes, but folks, this is a free gift that Jane has for you. If you go to her website, which, is the letter 4, I mean, the number 4-pillar health, 4-pillars health, you will find a downloadable PDF, 4 easy lifestyle hacks for better health. And it's something that she's giving to you so that you will be able to implement these things. And as she says, it's not big steps. It's the little steps, little by little by little, that are going to make the difference for you and for all your loved ones around you. And, it is kind of nice to know that, when you go by that big mirror in the hallway, you say, looking pretty good for who I am. And my sister said that to me. She's 5 years older than I am. And she said, for an old lady, I'm not looking so bad. And I guess you really have to look in the mirror and say to yourself, what is it that I can do to make myself look and feel better? And it is these 4 small steps, these easy lifestyle hacks for better health that Jane is talking about in her download. So stick with us, folks. We'll be coming back in just a few minutes with Jane Wenning, our wonderful, wonderful guest.